Olá, boa noite a todos. Good evening, everyone. Hello,
Good
Carol.
evening. Good evening. Good evening, everybody at home.
So here we are once again at Allan Kardec Spiritism Group of New Zealand, another weekly study, and two of us tonight, just Carol and myself, in different parts of New Zealand, but still, well, different parts of Auckland, I should
Of
say,
Auckland.
of Auckland, broadcasting to Auckland, to New Zealand, to the world, wherever you have internet and connected to us. We are connected in Jesus Christ and with the superior spirits as well. For the first time, we are trying new things. We are trying multicast, so people are hopefully watching us on Facebook, and you can leave your comment there. Also, people are watching us on YouTube, on our YouTube channel, and hopefully on our Instagram as well. We're trying to find a way of broadcasting simultaneously in three different um, ways. People that are on Facebook, they can comment. We can show your comments, and also on YouTube as well. I think Instagram, we still have to find a way of doing that. But you will be able to watch this later as well on Instagram too. Um, so once again, we are here still apart. We are together, but apart. As we know, New Zealand is still going through level 3.572, maybe.
Lost count.
We lost count, but we are the rules again a bit more leeway towards the rules, but we're still not able to have our meetings in our normal place of meetings. So we are still doing our online study group and offering now on YouTube and also on Instagram as well. So we don't have many news. The only news is that our ASG study group, um, they the subscriptions have ended. That was the last week because we already started. So how many weeks we've been going already, Carol?
4 weeks.
4 weeks, yeah. So by this time, it's a little bit trickier for everyone to be, to participate now. So yeah, we won't be able to accept any more new members. But if you're still interested to learn a little bit more about it, and still, we can probably put some material so you can watch online, and still plenty of things to study from Federação Espírita Brasileira and other groups around the world as well. So yeah, we are able to offer that for you. But in our little group, it would be beneficial if you started from the beginning and keep going towards the end together. So, and the group's going really well. Of course, our spiritual studies for children and family. Um, we are on a break until we go back to level one. So we give you updates on that. We are still offering though. Fraternal assistance week that can be done that can be done online. So if you are in need to have a chat, maybe learn a little bit more about spiritism, if you're going through any challenges, who isn't going through any challenges, but if you like to have a conversation for half an hour with some of us, we can make an appointment. You can leave us a message here on Facebook, also on Instagram, or YouTube, or via email, alankardecnz@gmail.com. And speaking of Instagram, I just had a look. It is only showing half of my
Yeah,
face
it's kidding.
and half of your
Yeah.
face because the format of Instagram is different. So hopefully people on Instagram can still enjoy our study, maybe not through our beautiful faces, but through our voices, and maybe some through reading as well. If you are not able to read the slides, you can still follow the reading on kardecpedia.com, and you'll be able to find the passages and the material that you're going to be reading for you guys as well. Is there anything else that you'd like to comment on anything, Carol? I think that's it for news, right?
Yeah, I was gonna say if you're
Right.
on Instagram and it's cut it and you can't read it, just hop on Facebook because you can see it, or in YouTube,
Yes,
and then you
hop on
can see it
Facebook,
there.
and
Yeah.
Facebook will be much clearer. We're still trying to find a way of finding the best possible way of broadcasting simultaneously. So what happened? I will
Yeah.
I'll post this on Instagram on IGTV, and the format will be a bit better as well. So if you can't go to
Yeah.
Facebook, you can maybe wait until later tonight, and will be on Instagram again. But yeah, I think the most important is the message that is coming through as well, and we'll do our best to read very clearly and slowly, so everybody can. If you're not able to read, you can just hear us and go from there. Speaking of reading, I'm going to share a page here and ask Carol um, to read for us. We are on Christian Agenda number 37, and which is, of course, very much related to the study that we're going to be doing on the gospel according to Spiritism. And then after Carol's reading, I will start with the initial prayer. So once again, welcome everyone. You can leave your message here for us, like Alcione did. Good evening, Alcione.
Good evening.
Welcome to our show, to our study group. So I'll pass the voice to Carol now to do the reading.
Liberate your soul. Do not become attached to the beauty of ephemeral forms. The flower lasts but briefly. Do not heap up precious things that weigh in the scale of the world. Golden chains can blind as much as bronze handcuffs. Do not become a slave to opinions of the frivolous or ignorant. Incitatus Caligula's horse ate from a bucket adorned with pearls. Still, it did not stop him from being a horse. Do not nourish the greed for possessions. The coin collector's house is full of coins which served millions, but whose owners have disappeared. Do not give up your constructive freedom because of human opinions. The trap that punishes the ferocious animal is the same that surprises the negligent canary. Do not believe in the flattery which lets your imaginary qualities. Cruel wasps frequently hid themselves in the calyx of the lily. Do not worry afflicted over acquiring immediate benefits during the earth experience. Museums crammed full of cloaks of kings and of other cadavers of dead advantages.
So then, in this moment, as we gather here in the name of God and Jesus, we'd like to ask everyone to be in a comfortable, nice, quiet position where we can start together and quiet our minds and our hearts in this moment that is so brief and so short, but so powerful and can be so fruitful. We lift our thoughts and our feelings towards God, our Heavenly Father, who gave us the opportunity to live, created us, so we can go through these reincarnations, these experiences. Sometimes we don't understand the challenges we face, but we have complete faith in your designs and in your plan, and we are grateful for yet another opportunity, another life, another day, another meeting. We also thank our role model, our bigger brother, Jesus Christ, the governor of this planet, who is always with us, who left many messages, many examples, a safe guideline towards perfection, towards inner reform, towards the true practice of charity, love, and justice. We also thank our spiritual friends, superior spirits who are here with us, assisting us, protecting us, inspiring all of us in the dissemination of Spiritism in New Zealand, in other parts of the world, but especially in our conscience, so we can live righteously, trying to follow these steps left by Jesus and becoming better spirits. We also extend this welcome to everyone who is watching us here live or later on in one of our channels, asking everyone to open your hearts, open your minds to the ideas, to the concepts, and the lessons that are coming through based on Spiritism. And we ask permission to start another virtual online meeting for our study group in this Wednesday. Thank you so much. So be it.
So be it.
Okay, so yeah, so we've been studying the gospel and the gospel according to Spiritism, and we have been looking through this amazing chapter um, that talk about the importance of materialism, or not the importance, but the importance of spiritualism over materialism. The the title of the chapter, it's according gospel according to Spiritism. It's you cannot serve God and Mammon. Serve both God and Mammon. Of course, Mammon being the the idea of the exemplification of wealth. You know, that's what Mammon means. I was preparing for tonight's lecture and thinking back of the not lecture but study, but the last weeks as well, we didn't touch into the what the word mammon means. It's come from mamona. Mamona is not that little fruit that we have in Brazil, but mamona with two n's, and that means wealth, and it's being used as an example, as a figurative of speech representing um, wealth and the attachment to wealth. So Jesus was telling us, you know, in this that you cannot serve God or be in the spiritual life, you know, if you are too attached to the material things. And for the first, I think 6 items of this chapter, it's all actually yeah, 6 items of this chapter is all about figure of speech, because it's all the parables that Jesus mentioned about the avarice, which is greed, you know, and which is, you know, for many religions and is considered a sin. As we know, there are no sins in Spiritism, but a very difficult challenges to overcome is one of the challenges to overcome is greed, and so it's quite interesting that we've been talking about it, and now um, from the last not last week. Last week we had a beautiful lecture by Carol's aunt at Delma, but it was the week before. We were talking about the parable of the talents and also the explanation by the Spirit. So that's what we're going. That's the idea. We had many ideas, many different symbologies, you know, from Jesus, especially when he was talking about is it's easier for a camel to go through the eye of a needle than a rich man to reach the rich man to reach the kingdom of heaven. He then we just pointed out last week that he didn't say it was not. He didn't say it was impossible for a rich man to reach the kingdom of heaven. He said it was easier for a camel, and we also demystify. It's not an animal camel. Camel was a different way to express a thick rope. So even like I think last week, I'm not sure if Faustino did or I did, but doesn't matter. I think was important to say that the only way to put a really thick rope to an eye of a needle is to dismantle,
Tear apart, yeah.
to tear apart the big rope. So it's pretty much what we need to do to reach the kingdom of heaven. We need to tear up ourselves apart from
Mhm.
the material, from our physical mind. And that's why I think the first reading was quite fit to what we're going to read, because that's pretty much what we read, right? Do not be fooled by the beauty, the temporal beauty that we have in this life, you know. and we can slowly see fading away. My hair is growing gray and gray.
It's lockdown, all of us.
Since lockdown, so yeah.
Uh,
So yeah, it's quite interesting to see that the first reading is connected once again to the second reading. So I'm just gonna share our screen here, um, to go through our reading, which we're gonna be start on the item 8, which would be the inequality of riches. Let me see. Yep, it came through. Could you please read for us, Carol?
yeah, sure. The inequality of riches. The inequality of riches is one of those problems one tries in vain to resolve if one considers only the present life. The first question that presents itself is, why are humans not equally wealthy? They are not equally wealthy for one very simple reason. They are not equally intelligent, active, and industrious enough to acquire wealth, or moderate and foresightful, yes, enough to preserve it. Furthermore, it is a mathematically demonstrated fact that if wealth were divided equally, it would give each person a minimal and insufficient portion, that if such division were carried out, the equilibrium would soon be shattered due to the diversity in character and aptitudes, that if the division were possible and lasting,
Right.
with each person having only enough to live on, it would be the end of all the great endeavors that contribute to the progress and well-being of humankind. That if it provided each person with what is necessary, there would no longer be the stimulus that compels humans to great discoveries and worthwhile enterprises. If God concentrates wealth in certain areas, it is because from there it expands in sufficient quantities according to the necessities. In accepting this fact, one might ask why God grants wealth to persons who are incapable of making it fruitful for the good of all. This is yet another proof of God's wisdom and goodness. By giving humans free will, God wanted them to reach the point where, through their own experience, they could distinguish between good and evil, and that the practice of the good be the result of their own efforts and will. Humans must not be fatalistically led either to good or evil, or they would be nothing more than passive and irresponsible animal-like instruments. Wealth is a means of testing them morally, but since it is simultaneously a powerful means of inducing progress, God does not wish for it to remain unproductive for long, and thus moves it around incessantly. All persons will possess it at one time or another in order to try their hand at it and to test the use they make of it. However, since it is physically impossible for all to possess it at the same time, and moreover, if all did possess it, no one would work and the improvement of the planet would be compromised. Each individual possesses it in turn. The one who does not possess it today has either had it already or will have it in a future life, and the one who possesses it now might not have it tomorrow. There are both the rich and the poor, because since God is just, each must it work in turn. Poverty is for some a test of patience and resignation. Wealth is for others a test of charity and self-denial. The lamentable use that some persons make of their wealth, and the ignoble passions that greed provokes are rightly deplorable, and one might ask if God is really just in giving it to such persons. It is certain that if humans had only one life to live, nothing would justify such a division of earthly wealth. However, if instead of limiting our vision to the present life, we would consider the whole sequence of lives, we would see that everything balances out justly. Hence, the poor no longer have reason to accuse providence or to envy the rich, and the rich no longer have any reason to gloat over what they possess. If they abuse it, it is not with decrees or sumptuary laws that wrongs will be righted. Laws can temporarily change one on the outside, but they cannot change one's heart. That is why these laws have a temporary duration and are always followed by a reaction even more unrestrained. The source of the evil resides in selfishness and pride. Abuses of every kind will cease by themselves when humankind rules itself according to the law of charity.
Oh, right. There was a lengthy reading, right?
Yeah. Oh, but it's
Yeah.
sometimes when the topic flows so well like that, it's quite nice to read at once. Isn't it? When we cut it and we go back to comment, we miss so many.
Yeah. Would you like to talk, or do you need some time to think it over?
Oh no, I can talk. So
Okay, good.
I think it's funny that I said we were having dinner just before I sat here, and I was talking to Max, so to my fiance, and we were talking about that. He asked like, "Oh, what is the study about tonight?" And I said what it was, and he said, "Oh, I was just actually just reading about something similar on the news about um just it was about taxing churches and etc. So,
Yeah.
and we were just discussing that the text talk about it. Like, imagine if we could actually share um, the wealth of the world through all people. And we know that by fact, I think all of us study when we study communism and socialism in school. And are trying to just form our way of thinking and um, just trying to form our I think that's the good, a good definition, the way that we think, so transform our thought through just trying to make us be inquisitive about things. And we're studying history or geography and how society is divided.
Social
I think
studies.
every yeah, social studies,
Social
every
studies as well. Yeah.
teacher will talk about it. Like, if we divide the whole wealth of the world, it wouldn't be enough for anyone. So, how come some people have so much and a lot of so many people have not even enough to live through? So, I think the greatest and that's what we were discussing, like, oh, obviously if we divide it through, first of all, even if it was enough for everybody, some people tomorrow they would be already poor, and some people in a few days would already have lots of money, because we are all different people and we think and act really differently. But also it's when we think about justice, especially if we're talking about just material life, if we're talking about a system, it's not the system is never supposed to be. Um, you're never supposed to be the same for everybody. It's supposed to be just for everybody, right? So
Yeah.
we have different needs, and if we give everybody the same, my needs are different from your needs, that are different from the next person's needs. So it's I feel in this case is about justice. So what I need in this life is different from someone else that is really rich. The need uh, for learning different lessons in this incarnation will come with different challenges. So
Yeah.
we face in this life the challenges, and so the expiations and the trials that we have to in this incarnation. So God, that is always just, will allow us to face a challenge that fits us at this point in time.
Yeah. And I think it's interesting, as you also mentioned, that if we were to spread all the wealth of the world equally, people have different skills, different commitment, different,
Yeah.
different commitment, and different, intentions to spread
Mhm.
that wealth around. And and also, in some cases, if you give wealth to people that are not ready for their wealth, they can even harm themselves and
Yeah.
harm others by having that much power in their hands. So, we're not wise enough to know these kind of things and to spread these the wealth accordingly to everyone. And thinking back to a few lessons ago that we had about the actually last lesson about the parable of the talents, like when Jesus said, the it's like the master who gives 5 talents to one servant,
Mhm.
according to their abilities. So he gave 5 talents to one, gave two to another, and one to another, because he knows who is able to multiply the talents or the wealth or whatever. We're talking about wealth, but it can be anything. That giving talents or abilities or possibilities to
Yeah.
somebody, because they know they are able to achieve that. So we are not in the position to give that responsibility for, to somebody. It's like giving a toddler a knife, or they can harm themselves. So we have to be humble enough to understand that there is a reason, and actually we now know the reason, because being and having the conviction of reincarnation, we know that these reasons are they were built from a past experience. Just like when we saw on another passage that we read a couple, not last lesson, but the lesson before that, talking about the parable of the evil rich man, which was a man
Mm.
that was rich, and he would not help Lazarus that was outside his house, and he would ask the dogs to lick Lazarus' wounds, and when he passed away, he see Lazarus in a different position, a higher position than him. So, and as we know, and it also was written on that passage, that we all have to go through all these experiences. We all have to live all these experiences. So, if we are poor in this life, and none of us are poor in New Zealand, I don't think we are here with
Mm.
the internet, 5G internet, talking to the whole world. We're
Yeah.
not poor, you know, but we're not super wealthy either. But what are we doing with the wealth that we have? This is what is important, because sometimes so then I'm not serving mammon because I'm not super wealthy. So it's not about how much you have, it's not how less you have, but it's what use you are making with the talents or the wealth or the qualities or the intelligence or
Yeah.
the abilities you have. Is the use you put to them. So yeah, it's quite interesting to, if you observe all the passages that Allan Kardec put in the first part of this chapter and then the explanation of the spirits, because everything then makes way more sense now when the
Mhm.
spirits are explaining to us all the parables that Jesus mentioned. And um yeah, because and it's interesting that he even mentions that in the end, I think towards the end, if you excuse me for a little bit, I'll just bring that back. I think it's a bit forward in that. Let me just go back to that page. I think um, he was talking about that things is going to change in the world. I forgot where he was, but I don't want to misquote it.
Prison life.
Um,
No, I don't think it is one.
uh, I think it's somewhere around here. Um, but I think we're talking about the laws, that things are changing in the world. They will change. Um, oh, yeah, that's the last thing. Sorry. Abuses. Can you see my arrow there?
Yeah.
Abuses of every kind will cease by themselves when
Mm.
humankind rules itself according to the law of charity. So, it's something that will eventually change, because every change, it takes time. We can't change things in a whole planet, with just one reincarnation. It takes many reincarnations sometimes to change one thing in ourselves. Now imagine changing the whole humankind, how many more reincarnation experience we will have to go through to change this planet from this uh, stage of trials and expiation, or trials and atonement, to regeneration, and then from regeneration forwards. So it's going to take a long time. Alcini has a couple of comments here. Richness and poverty are temporary trials. We can learn a lot from both. Yes, exactly. And something else, different lessons but great opportunities. Yes, absolutely.
Always
um,
an opportunity. I found it quite nice also that we said that you said the text we read in the beginning, so there's so much to do with this. And I was thinking of one of the sentences that said, and you were talking about like also, doesn't matter how much um, we we have, it looks like we are always wanting more. So it doesn't matter
mhm.
how much money, and you just said it, none of us here in New Zealand are actually poor, and I'm sure most of us most of the time think what we have is not enough, so we're always seeking more. And I think that's um, one of the biggest challenges of having money, doesn't matter how much it is that we never think is enough. We are always after more, and how much is too much? We never seem to think is too much. And then the text at the beginning said something really. One of the sentences was really impactful, like how all of the museums are filled with capes of greedy people, right? Of greediness, of proof of greediness. So
Yeah,
it's that's what it is. Like, why are we after this material thing that when we disincarnate, it's just gonna stay behind, and it's not gonna actually aggregate much in our lives. If we think that this is the only life we live, might be interesting, but knowing that is much more, that has been much more before, and there will be much more after. Why is it so? Why do we keep seeking and thinking that privilege are the people that have a lot of this that will stay behind?
yeah. No, there was very, the imagery used on that message by Emmanuel was just amazing, because he says, golden chains can bind as much as silver, not silver, bronze handcuffs or
Bronze.
something. Yeah,
Yeah.
bronze handcuffs. So you can be tied up with your wealth.
Yeah.
It's because, and that's the thing. Like it's of course we want better things, of course we want more comfort, more, but how much are you sacrificing by that? Because even on that reading from the gospel according to Spiritism, you say legitimate wealth is only acquired by the one who you are not harming other people.
Mhm.
Yeah. And like it or not, sometimes, we even sometimes unknowingly, the things that we have, are, the latest sneakers that we have, they might be sewn by somebody that are getting paid below living age in a small
Yeah.
country, but sometimes we just pretend, oh, we not pretend, but we try to forget, not think about it, but there are people, of course, if they are, yeah, it's quite tricky to go into that situation, but it's something that we have to be aware of. There are people, you know that are living in less favorable situations than we are, and we should be grateful for the things we have, and we also should not be attached to the material things, because once we get to the spiritual world, nobody's going to ask us, oh, how much money did you make,
Yeah.
what was your salary back on earth,
Yeah.
and it's actually quite the opposite. How much charity have you done? How many people were you able to help? And how much
Yeah.
have you changed? How much have you worked on your inner reform, your inner enlightenment? So it's yeah, it's quite sometimes quite hard to look in the mirror and think like that, and not only think like that, but actually put that into your conduct, your behavior as well. So yeah,
Yeah, I was listening
yeah, go
while
ahead.
you find the next one. I'll just say something quickly.
Yeah,
That I was listening
absolutely.
to a podcast the other day, and the person was saying like, "Oh, have you noticed that we introduce ourselves? The person asks, oh, this is my friend Carol," and they usually say, what is your profession? Or when you give an interview, it appears under what is the profession of the person when they talk about on the news or something like that. And then they were saying, but is it really like the biggest trace of your personality? It's who you are. And then I was thinking, like, oh, when we disincarnate, is that how we're gonna be introduced to someone? Oh, this is Carol, and they're gonna say what we were doing on Earth. That no one will care. What is your profession? How much money you had on your bank account? This no one matters. The only thing that matters, and that people will remember both when you disincarnate in the spiritual plan and here on Earth. It's your personality, the actions that how you mark their lives through your words and actions, not really what you did for work or um, how much money you earn. So, what
Yeah.
really matters.
Plus, as we have looked in the spirits book as well, when we are in the spiritual world, we disincarnate, no much introductions needed. everyone can see, everyone can see around you. You know, you're in the perispirit, showing all your thoughts, your feelings, your actions. There's no masks over there. You show yourself as you really are. So, we are in a way, you know. Um, for better or worse, probably worse in the long run, we are we are um, I don't know, fooling ourselves in that we can say to somebody, "Oh yeah, I'm good," but in fact you're sad, or pretending to be so happy, or trying to show off your wealth, or showing off your ostentations, and then when you deep inside, you are not. But in spiritual world, people look at you and they will see it. You don't have to show how much
No
money you have,
tour.
because it will come through very clearly to the superior spirits. I
Yeah.
will still have another 20 minutes to go through, so I could give you a break and I could read that passage if it's okay.
Yeah.
Talking about the true ownership. Humans truly possess only what they can take with them from this world, what they find upon arriving, and what they leave behind upon departing. They can only enjoy during their stay. However, since they are forced to abandon it, they can only enjoy it and not truly possess it. What then do they truly possess? Nothing that is for the use of their body, but everything that is for the use of their soul: intelligence, knowledge, moral qualities. These are what they bring with them and what they take back, what no one can take from them, and what will be more useful for them in the other world than in this one. It is up to them to be wealthier upon departing than they were upon arriving, for their future situation will depend on whatever good they have acquired. Whenever people go to a far off country, they place in their luggage objects that will be useful in that country. They do not carry anything that would be useless. Therefore, do likewise regarding your future life, and provide yourselves with everything that will be of use to you there. Travelers who stop at an inn are given a nice room only if they can pay for it. Those who have scanty resources are given a less agreeable one. As far as those who do not have any money at all, they sleep on a pile of straw. The same applies to humans when they arrive in the spirit world. Their place there depends on their means. However, they will not pay with gold. They will not be asked, "How much did you have on earth? What position did you occupy there? Were you a prince or a laborer?" But they will be asked, "What have you brought back with you?" The value of things or titles will not be acknowledged, only the sum of their virtues. Thus, in this respect, the laborer may be wealthier than the prince. In vain will the prince allege that before his departure he paid for his entry with gold. He will receive the response: "Places here cannot be purchased. They are earned by the good one has done. With earthly money you were able to purchase fields, houses, palaces. Here everything is paid for with the qualities of the heart. Are you rich in such qualities? Then you are welcome and may go to the highest place where all kinds of happiness await you. Are you poor in these qualities? Then you must go to the lowest place where you'll be treated according to what you possess. Pascal, Geneva, 1860. So yeah, like just like what we were talking before, we just like the
Yeah.
case, the example that Jesus gave us with Lazarus and the evil rich man, that was not very charitable towards the Lazarus, and supposedly with anyone else, he was not, he was given a lower place, that he said, for the moment you cannot come where we are, and where in the position that we are, we cannot go to where we are, and we see this in the spirits literature. For example, in the series of books by André Luiz, Life in the Spirit World, we see many times that spirits of high order, of superiority, of morality, they are not able to live in Nosular, which is for us is a place of high elevation. But there are spirits that they don't live there. They can appear there, but they don't belong there because they belong to a higher order. So, and that order doesn't depend on the wealth or money or the the coin that we have here. Everything is according to the virtues that we acquire, and we can only acquire them by, as we mentioned before in the last part of the reading, these will happen when we start to be more charitable, when we start to be less selfish and be less proud and less greedy, and start to share this wealth that we have, not because we have to, but because we want to. There could be, like we're talking about, social studies and different social um, arrangements. If there could be a case that somebody comes and say, okay, from now on, everybody will give, the money is held by the government and we will spread evenly. Even if that happens, like we mentioned, that's it's not going to fix the problem. Because
Yeah.
we're not giving our giving away our wealth first wisely or willingly. We have to want to help as well. So it's that's the desire for help, and not just giving money away, but being detached from that wealth, detached from that money. Would you like to
Yeah, oh,
comment
sorry,
on
I
that?
was delayed. I was waiting because it looked like you were going to say something else.
No, no,
Um,
no, no.
and and I think it's the same as money is not it's not enough. Money alone, it's never going to be enough for anyone's growth. It's also not enough giving away just money, money that is not attached to any sentiment or any true charity is not real charity. It's just, especially when you have a lot of it, just giving away something that won't be of service for you, when something that you don't even notice is not true charity. So then again, going through different parables, and this was not on this chapter, but Jesus, one of the parables talks about why is it so much more a person that earns much less and shares what they have, the little that they have that action has much more value than someone that has a lot and donate a lot, because for them doesn't really have meaning. They won't even notice that the money is gone. So they are not really they are not doing um, what it's needed to help. They're just doing the bare minimum that they should be doing, right? They're not giving above beyond. They're not doing it from the heart. But someone that has very little and understands how bad it is to have nothing, and has something near close to nothing, it's decides that it's better to divide with someone else than having close to nothing alone. This is true charity. So it is then we talked before. So different types of challenge, living in this world with a lot of money, living in this world with very little money. You learn different lessons. Hopefully, you learn something, because we are. I'm sure all of us can think of people that we see on the news all the time, or that we met that do have a lot of means and. Are doesn't look like it's learning anything. But I think also something else to think is that before we envy those people is thinking that we live in this social media world where we see only the surface. And like Mani said, when we go to the spiritual world, there is no surface. Everything can be seen, everything can be felt, everything is out there. But right now in this planet, we live out of impressions, and we might have the impression that those people were happy and living a full life when they are really depressed or have very weak social relations, because money is a big challenge in this life. So we can't be mistaken that it makes everything easier, because it might be that certain challenges of this life will become easier because we are living in different degrees of wealth, but other challenges that we don't understand when we don't have that degree of wealth are much bigger. And God will never give us we say in Portuguese, the cold bigger than the blanket, isn't it? O frio maior que o cobertor. So
Yeah.
everybody will receive the challenge as we need, and we have to believe that. We have to believe in this fairness to carry on living without being revolted, without anger, without becoming bitter people, thinking that we deserve more than what we got.
Yeah. So just finalizing the last item before we stop with this reading this book. Continuing in item number 10, the goods of the earth belong to God, who distributes them as He will, and humans are only their stewards, administrators at various degrees of honesty and intelligence. It's quite interesting. He puts at various degrees of honesty and intelligence. But yeah, it's very amazing this concept that we don't have anything. Nothing belongs to us. Is everything is
Yeah.
belongs to God. We're just stewards. We're just looking after it for the moment. They are so little, the individual property of humans, that God often foils all foresight, and wealth escapes those who believe they are most entitled to it. You might say that this is understandable in regards to inherited wealth, but the same does not apply to wealth acquired through one's labor. Undoubtedly, if it is legitimate wealth, then it must have been honestly obtained, for property is only legitimately acquired when, to possess it, one has not done harm to anyone. I jumped the gun there. I think that's where I read this part. So it's interesting. Once again, just to legitimize what I said, legitimately acquired property is only legitimate acquired when, to possess it, when you have done nothing to harm anyone. There will be an accounting for every cent wrongly acquired in detriment to someone else. However, just because certain individuals owe their wealth to their own efforts, does that give them any power over it upon dying? Are not the precautions they take to transmit it to their descendants often useless? For if God does not want it to fall into their hands, nothing will prevail against His will. Can people use and abuse their wealth while alive without having to give an accounting? No. In allowing them to acquire it, God might have wished to reward their efforts, courage, and perseverance over the course of their current life. However, if they use it only to satisfy their senses or their pride, or if it becomes a cause of failure in their hands, it would be better for them not to have possessed it at all. They lose on one hand what they have gained on the other, thereby annulling the merit of their labor. When they depart the earth, God will tell them that they have already received their reward. A Protector Spirit in Brussels, 1861. So yeah, just to come back to what we were just talking about, before, that what we just stewards, we just borrow stuff from God. We don't own anything, so why brag what we don't even have ourselves? It's yeah. And interesting as well, he was talking about about the legitimate ownership. If it's legitimate yours, if you have gained it, not hurting anybody else, of course that's applying the law of charity and law of love, not doing to others what you don't want them to do, or doing to others what they would like them to do to you. Um, and of course as well, the passing of the riches, when you pass on to people, and we see a lot of that happening, wealthy families passing their wealth to their kids, and that can sometimes create trouble. Sometimes rich people in their death, the deathbed, and the kids are still fighting over who is going to take what percentage of that. And there are cases that happens, and and that's what the spirits are saying as well, that if they're not meant to have it, because it's not their fathers, it's not their family's estate, it's actually belongs to God. And if God is not doesn't see any use for that wealth to be in that family or that state, they will be gone in one way or the other. So yeah, it's we have to remember that there is a design, there is a plan, that we're not we don't have much saying on it. The only saying we have is by our actions. That's how we can change that plan, by making our plan work, by following the divine laws.
Yeah, the only thing we can do is react to whatever, is control the way we react to whatever happens, right? Um, and I think it's I always remember Chico Xavier saying like, oh, it's a truly good person will never be rich because they will just keep sharing whatever they have. They will just keep giving it away, and will just never actually get rich. So in his statement also makes me think that what the text just said about like, oh, it's only richness is only legitimate if you didn't harm anyone. And I truly think it is impossible to become extremely rich without harming anyone, because on the way to that, you will have so many things that will happen, so many challenges and so many decisions you have to make, and some of them for sure morally incorrect, and that people know that and say like, oh, it's worth it, it's just a small thing that I have to do, uh, and then when I am there, I'm going to be able to help so many people, and it won't matter, so it's the truth is, if the person is it's really truly good, they won't break this type of barrier. They won't allow other people to get hurt. They won't steal from other people or hurt other people, and they probably just won't become rich. So it's there are more important things than that. And if we are truly good and virtuous people, we will for sure endeavor in other chases. We won't carry on trying to achieve that. To achieve that, I think there's other ways of doing charity and helping people without actually having to become rich.
Yeah, and we
So,
have
do you want to
another
read
comment.
else one?
Yes, you can go ahead, you can read that.
Oh, as Alcione is saying that we only take with us our virtues, our good actions, our tendencies. All material stuff remains here. Exactly. So, what is the point of chasing so much, isn't it? When you could be doing something else that you actually take with you, like the virtues and good actions.
Yes, yes, absolutely. We have come to the end of this reading on the gospel according to Spiritism, and now we have um, the reading on the Spirit's book. which we stopped on 366. So now we're going to be doing on the 367. So on the Spirits book, we are reading on the chapter that is chapter 7 on book 2, which is the return to corporeal life. And with this return to corporeal life, we have we were talking about it's funny because last lesson we had talking about the parable of the talents, and then we saw in this one on this book last lesson about the the faculties, intellectual and moral faculties that we acquired from that we bring from the spirit world as well, which is in a way it is a talent, talents that we
Mhm.
acquired, the previous incarnation. We bring it back and we slowly get to them. So, as per usual, we're going to be reading one question each. So I had my last saying in the last one. So would you like to start this one, Carol, please?
Yeah,
367.
sure. The influence of the organism. 367. Upon joining the body, does the spirit identify itself with matter? Matter is no more than the spirit's envelope, a clothing in the body's envelope. Upon joining the body, a spirit preserves the attributes of its spirit nature.
368. Does the spirit exercise its faculties with full liberty after its union with the body? The exercise of its faculties depends on the organs serving as their instruments. They are weakened by the density of matter. Then, accordingly, would the material envelope be an obstacle to the free manifestation of the spirit's faculties, like an opaque glass is an obstacle to the free emission of light? Yes, and exceedingly opaque. And then Allan Kardec does a comment. One may further compare the action of the body's matter upon a spirit to that of sludgy water, which hinders the free movement of an object immersed in it. So it's quite interesting how Kardec he uses that analogy of, like if you're walking through like muddy water, you know, if you go to mangrove, manguezal, if you're walking, or if you go to the beach here. There's a beach here in Auckland, to um, Ocahu Bay, for example. If it's
Mission
low
Bay or
tide,
Carro Bay, yeah.
Ocahu Bay, Mission Bay, you start to get into the water. You try to move, but the sludgy water, the muddy water, you get stuck there. And it's interesting because he asks as well, that the Allan Kardec asks here in this question, um, um, in 368, if the spirit exercises faculties with full liberty after this union with the body. And as we understand from this chapter, we see that the union from this spirit with the body starts at the word escaping me.
Conception is a...
Conception. I'm thinking fecundation. Conception.
Which
Conception
is
is a better
it's a
word.
free translation.
Free translation. At
Yeah.
conception. So not at the union of the body is impossible for the spirit. The spirit's still getting used to that transition between between the spiritual world and the incarnation. And as we learned as well, the full union, of the spirit and the body starts kind of halfway through infancy as well, because as we develop this bond becomes tighter and tighter. So even during that period, we know that some of us, some kids remember something from their past life, or maybe a different skill they might have, they bring with them. It's easier for them to remember and to connect with the with spiritual reality than after a certain age, 6 or 7. So yeah, so this exercise of full faculty doesn't happen, with the union of the body, and just it gets harder. In fact, just like Allan Kardec saying, it's because we are entrapped. We're using a very very visual word, entrapped in this physical body, and we don't have access to all our faculties as if we had and when we are in spirit. 369.
Is the free exercise of the soul's faculties subordinate to the development of the bodily organs? The organs are the instruments for the manifestation of the soul's faculties. This manifestation depends on the degree of the respective organ's development, just as the excellence of a piece of work depends on the excellence of the tool.
And it's interesting. He compares our body as a tool because that's basically what it is. This is a temporary tool we have to work in our soul. We use the body to develop ourselves, to improve ourselves. It's quite interesting, isn't it? The concept he uses.
Yeah, I think it's always, and it's a vocabulary that we use a lot in Spiritism, isn't it? The body is the instrument, so it's the instrument for the spirit to survive and to actually be here on Earth, to be incarnated on this planet of proof and expiation. So on this primitive planet, we still need a very heavy material body, and our spirit then needs a case, so needs a tool, needs an instrument to be able to live here. But when we go back to the spiritual plane, we don't need that case, that instrument anymore. The spirit is free to it's, and we say that a lot, is free, so it's going back home, going back to where we don't need that instrument anymore to communicate, to live our lives in spiritual, I say lives because it's all the same life, right? We're all always living, but we won't need the physical body anymore, so that different words will require different tools, so different jobs will require different instruments, different tools.
Yeah. 370. That question is very. That answer is very interesting. I find very intriguing. Could one infer from the influence of the organs a connection between the development of the cerebral structure and the moral and intellectual faculties? Do not confuse the effect with the cause. The spirit always possesses the faculties that are proper for it. Thus, it is not the organs that give it these faculties, but rather the faculties that stimulate the development of the organs. So do
Hmm.
not confuse the effect with the cause. Just I was just today, I was just watching. Actually, I wasn't watching. I was just listening. I was doing my gardening, and I had
Mhm.
YouTube. Listening to a lesson by Décio Yandoli, which is a doctor. He's the director, the president of AMI, Associação Médico e Espírita in Brazil, and he was talking about the perispirit, um, and then in the second lecture that I watched again, he was talking about the importance of the mind into the mediumistic phenomena, and he was trying to explain to people the different concepts of mind, from
Mm.
philosophical point of view, from a scientific
Yeah.
point of view. And we cannot find the mind. It's not in our, the brain is where we process our mind, our conscience, but we don't actually have anything. It's not a result of a chemical reaction in our brain. It's beyond that. And it's quite interesting. If you guys, if anyone is interested, just send me a message. I can forward the link. It's in Portuguese, unfortunately, but if you are watching and if you are speak Portuguese, I can pass that on to you. Just say flick as a message. I can do that. But if you just go to YouTube and look for Décio Yandoli, and you find many different ideas. So yeah, it's just you can't really confuse the effect with the cause, because the intelligence, and the moral and intellectual faculties do not come from the structure of our brain. It's the other way around. The structure of our brain will be able to process our intellectual and moral faculties, but it is like we're talking about it before. It's the tool, is the instrument that will come through, but the source is not that. It's beyond matter.
It's funny you said that about the lecture, and it's the same thing when I was reading this question and the continuation that you're gonna read now. I also started thinking of, so I'm doing a degree in psychology and counseling, and
Uh-huh.
this week I was reading about how psychology was, and especially behavioral psychology, was the start of um, the study of how mind and body are actually cannot actually be studied as two separate things. So
Mm,
I was reading and thinking like, oh, isn't more like a spirit and body, like you can actually study them as two separate things. It's one thing, two different matters, but that one in this planet won't work without the other. And then when I was reading this question, it made me think of that too, saying like, oh, and psychology says that the brain without the mind has no control over the body, and has no, you can't explain someone's behavior or someone's intelligence by just looking at their brain. You have to look at their actions and their behavior to explain why the person have that intelligence, or the person acts like that. So it's a combination of it, for psychology, right, of the brain and the mind. So when I was reading this, I was thinking exactly that. So it doesn't matter what is the tool they're using there. If you don't know how to use it, there is no point of having, and we say that a lot, is now it has a big brain, so it doesn't matter, you can have the largest brain ever, but if you don't know how to use it.
yeah. So going back to the subsequent question, or so then Kardec goes a bit ahead and asks, according to this view, does the diversity of aptitudes among individuals stem solely from the condition of their spirit? Solely is not the exact term. The qualities of the spirit, who may be more advanced or less so, are the basis for this diversity. However, we must take into account the influence of matter because it hinders to a greater or lesser degree the exercising of these faculties. When the spirit incarnates, it brings a certain predispositions with it. And if we accept the idea that there is a corresponding area in the brain for each of one of them, then the development of these areas will be seen as an effect and not a cause. If the faculties had their origins in the organs themselves, humans would be machines without free will and without any responsibility for their actions. We would have to accept the fact that the greatest geniuses, scientists, poets, artists, owe their talents to chance, which has given them a special brain structure. Consequently, without this structure, they would not be geniuses. The least simpleton, I love the word simpleton, the least simpleton could have been a Newton, which is a scientist, a Virgil, which was a poet, or a Raphael, which is an artist, if he had been provided with a certain brain structure. This assumption becomes even more absurd when applied to moral qualities. Thus, according to this theory, if Saint Vincent de Paul had been gifted that by nature with a particular brain structure, he might have been a scoundrel, whereas the greatest scoundrel would only lack a certain brain structure in order to be someone like Saint Vincent de Paul. On the other hand, if we accept the idea that such special structures, if they exist, are effects developed by exercising the faculties, like the muscles by moving them, then nothing seems unreasonable. Let us make a trivial comparison, albeit a truthful one. By certain facial traits, we recognize that a person is addicted to alcohol. Do these traits make the person alcoholic, or is it alcoholism that produces the traits? Therefore, one may safely state that the organs receive the imprint of the faculties. So it's very interesting how Allan Kardec goes and explains it to us, in very uh, simple analogies. And just by the way, Saint Vincent de Paul, he was a Catholic priest that was very much dedicated to charity. He started a very beautiful charitable organization that reached all corners of the world. We have them in Brazil because those it's like people that you can give your unused goods to them, and they pass the the profits to the church and to the people that are in need, or pass the things people that are in need. And we have them here in New Zealand too. Here they cutely call them the Vinnies, Saint Vincent. There's one really close to my house here, and sometimes we take stuff there. So Saint Vincent de Paul was a very charitable person. So he talked about intellectual, artistic, and moral qualities. None of them depend on the structure of the brain. It depends on the virtues that we bring, because we carry them, just like with the first reading, we carry those virtues from previous experiences and we bring them back when we come back. So that's why we can start to understand a bit more, which sometimes can seem unjust. Or why is that person so intelligent? Wow, that woman, she's so talented. It's so unfair. Actually, no, they worked hard for it in a different experience and they brought it back. Oh,
Yeah.
poor guy, he works so hard, but he never has anything. He's always losing money. He's always doing this. He's always we're using money the wrong way. So it must be a reason why. Of course, we're not going to use that against that person, because, as we know, we all came from the same place. We all started this race in the same position, and just because we might be ahead of other people, we're not ahead of many people, because there are way more advanced ones that are look at us and pity us because we are still making mistakes, of selfishness, of pride, and of also of being greedy as well. So yeah, it's quite interesting to see that how it's connecting one reading from another. People, we bring these qualities, and it does not it's got nothing to do with the brain structure. Sometimes we have to incarnate in a body that has a brain structure that can afford to be used to put these abilities into practice. I can't be a great I can't be a great piano player. Well, I might be able to, but if I have really short fingers, I might be able to
Yeah.
overcome. But if I'm born with a body with a nice, gentle, thin, elongated fingers, it
Longer.
would be easier for me to be a pianist, right? So, I mean,
Yeah.
just a silly example. That's how much my brain can work, right? But I think I make sense in my silliness, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I think it's, as we were saying before, God for sure give us the instruments for what we need to develop in this life, or whatever incarnation is going on. And I think something really interesting that we talked about it in Edge yesterday. So in the study that we just started doing on Tuesdays, and if Togo, if you're watching, I'll use your example because it was really nice, and he actually caught us talking for quite a little bit. That he said, like, oh, imagine, like, it's so much intelligence and reincarnation. The experiences that we have through reincarnation are so imprint in our spirit. It's so much of the spirit and not out of the body, so not of the brain or of the material body, that we could get any spirit, so any person, and put on to live Albert Einstein's life. So to be born in the same family, in the same body, and to be raised the way he was and pass through the exact same experiences as he did, and he would not turn into Albert Einstein. So he would not turn into a genius. It's not nurture versus nature here. Is not, he was not born that way, and he was not raised to be that way, so it's he or even better, he was already born with that predisposition. He was not just raised to be that way. So that spirit reincarnated on that body in that family for a reason, but it was not simply what made him a very intelligent man. It was the amount of incarnations and the amount of not just regular intelligence, but also emotional intelligence, right? We know how many quotes and how he lived his life, that he had quite a bit of emotional intelligence too. But it was not just the experiences of this incarnation or just the brain. And then that's why we were talking about it, because when studies have been done on his, that he would use parts of his brain that we don't use, that we use a way smaller percentage of our brain than he did. So thinking like the person could have the body, we all have the body and the brain to actually, but we can assess the same way. We just don't have the same ability to use different parts of our brain, and maybe we do just in a different way. We all have abilities; they're just different. But yeah, this is just a proof that it doesn't matter the instrument if you don't know how to use it, and we cannot expect to be very good at something, at the same thing as someone else. We are gonna have different abilities, and even sometimes, like I always joke that I am not very good at anything. I'm like fairly good in lots of stuff. So
Jack,
it's
Jack of all trades.
yeah, exactly. Like how you say, like, oh, can you sing? Oh, not very well. I can do, like, I can pass. It's okay. And several other things like that. I'm not very good at anything. Just like I'm fairly good in different stuff because I like to try
Well,
different stuff.
I can tell you that you are a very good study group companion. So it's been really good having this meeting here with you.
Thank you.
So you're
You
good, really,
too.
you're really good at that. You can say that.
Thank you. From
And
now on, I will.
so, yeah, with that last reading, then we think it's a good place for us to stop our reading and now go to our final stages of our meeting, which would be uh, a meditation more towards like an irradiation process where we're going to be praying for those who are in need, making the most of this moment that we are together, and together virtually, and also doing a final prayer and then say our farewells. And for those who are watching on Instagram, we're not able to put from live to IGTV, so you will be, yeah, have to come closer like this, like if you
This way.
go the other way, the other way, yeah, the other way, yeah, like this. So, but I'll be able to put it there in a more watchable format, and you'll be able to see that as well because I'm not able to save automatically from this live to IGTV, but I will do that tonight later on. With that in mind, I'm just going to put a little picture here for us to see, to have a look at. We tried doing with music, but music sometimes, because of the internet connection, can a little bit tricky to have the music going. So we're going to be just using our imagination, our minds, and controlling our breathing really deeply and calmly as well. Also paying attention to our heartbeats, trying to calm ourselves, trying to connect to the high spirits, the superior spirits that are here, connecting us all in a different plane, in the spiritual reality. We are all together, imagining us holding hands, and just like Jesus taught us, praying for those who are in need. We live in a planet where suffering still happens in many different ways, in many different levels of intensity, and with the suffering, many opportunities for learning, for overcoming our weaknesses, our troubles, chances of correcting ourselves from past mistakes, and also an opportunity to help others who are in need. The whole planet still going through this pandemic, creating a lot of anxiety, stress, and consequently, many health problems. As we know, COVID it is a virus affecting many lives, affecting their victims in the respiratory system, and many have passed away to the spiritual world. A lot of them, most of them being looked after already. But we have also to remember to those who remain, the family members, the relatives, the friends, sometimes not understanding or accepting the reality of the future life, feeling desperation, sometimes feeling loneliness. We pray for all of those who are in need of your example of future life, Jesus, that there is life after death, and we are all going through a process of moral evolution. We also pray for those who are suffering the consequences of the pandemic by not finding a good treatment due to COVID. We also pray for those who are suffering mentally with bipolar, depression, anxiety. We pray for those who are in the rest homes with a frail health, sometimes being prepared to pass away as well. Some that are feeling lonely and sometimes rejected by their families. Let us pray for them, letting them know that everything is going to be fine as they live in the last moments of this existence, as well as praying for those who are about to incarnate, being part of the family of planet Earth, of this mankind. We now take a moment to pray for those who are in the correction homes, in the prisons, taking the time to redeem themselves, maybe adjusting their behavior to come back to the social life. We now take a moment to pray and to vibrate, to irradiate good energy, positive thoughts, and healthy fluids to all of those that we're taking the moment now to think about. If you know someone who you know is in need physically, emotionally, spiritually, imagine that person receiving these blessings, these fluids reaching them and helping them. Our spiritual friends are in great position to offer them. And imagining all of them benefiting from this moment. We take a moment to pray for our relatives, our families, wherever they may be. You know, as we go through the last moment of this meeting, as a gesture of final prayer, we thank our spiritual friends for being with us, helping us understand, decipher all the beautiful messages and examples left by Jesus, looking at them now with the light of Spiritism in an attempt to bring them into our daily lives. So we keep asking God to enlighten us in these moments of difficulties, to give us the courage and the strength to face our weaknesses, and remember about everything that we study here in the moments of suffering, in moments of doubt, and in confusion, in moments that we are able to exercise the gift you gave us of free will. Let us remember the steps of Jesus when we make our choices in our lives. And we feel so blessed to have you so near to us. And for this moment, we thank you once again. And hence we ask permission to finish another Allan Kardec Spiritism Group of New Zealand meeting on this Wednesday here in New Zealand. Thank you so much. So be it. Okay.
So be it.
All right. Thank you once again, Carol. And thanks
Thank
everybody
you.
for watching us. And we will continue our study next week.
The two of us again.
Yes. Once again, the two team. High
Nice.
five.
High five.
All right,
I'll see
guys.
you
Have a good
next
night,
week, Manny.
everyone.
Thank you, everybody. Have a good night.
Bye bye.
Bye.